All right. Hi, Jorge. Thank you for being here tonight.
Sure,
We
thank you.
appreciate it. Does anyone have any questions? Karen Phillips.
Yeah, hi, welcome. See, hello. I
Good to
wanted
meet
to
you.
know how do you outreach at schools?
Yes, so we have been doing outreach through different sources. We are part of the PI group, is the Parents in Education. It's a group led by the Boulder County, where a lot of organizations are, working with different schools at the San Brain School District. We also connected through the district directly, with some of the schools that we have been working in the past. But definitely the best source has been to the two promotoras that we have at in Longmont, who had been connecting, especially this year, to some of the schools where it's more Latino immigrant children and families.
Okay. And then maybe I misunderstood, but you have a place in Boulder, but not one in Longmont?
Yes, our intention was at one point, right before COVID pandemic hit, back in 2020, we were expecting to open a small one office in Longmont. And because COVID, everything kind of put everything on hold. This year, we're still on the same, boat, the same position, but we are hopeful that we can actually open an office in Longmont the beginning of next year. Hopefully, we can actually start seeing more people in person. And but that has been our idea for a couple of years now.
But you don't service anyone in Boulder, just Longmont.
No, we do serve in Boulder. We base in Boulder, but we have been serving families in the Longmont area, for several years. Some of the families they used to attend groups that we used to host in Boulder, and we used to go do some activities in Longmont. So the whole point was back in 2019, we have the whole plan to go full to have more presence, start having more groups in person in the city of Longmont, but because COVID kind of put everything on hold.
So I hate to keep asking questions.
That's okay?
All right. So how did you do online then, or through the COVID
Yes.
to help people?
Yes, we started, doing everything virtual, through Zoom, to Teams, to different Google Meets, whatever is more available for the families and the participants. So we started working, doing virtual meetings and town halls and educational sessions. Everything that we used to do in person, we transfer everything virtual, starting last April in 2020. So we have continued. We haven't done anything in person. The only thing that we had done in person was a couple of exercise groups during this summer, where we were in a park and we just providing physical exercise for families and children.
Very good.
That was an outdoor activity.
Thank you.
Yes, of course.
Other questions from the board or staff?
So I do have a few.
Okay.
Hang on, I'm pulling it up here. So Jorge, can you talk about, because you say Longmont residents are currently driving to Boulder to receive services from Amistad. And you stated in the application that 40% of your clients travel from Longmont for your services. Yet when I looked at the numbers that you had in your application, that only indicates that 6% of your participants are Longmont residents. So I guess it's two questions. One, can you clarify the numbers serving from Longmont, and for the Longmont participants who do come to Amistad, for what services are they seeking?
Yes. So first of all, we have a lot of families coming from Boulder. When we used to meet in person, we used to have we have this program through the promoter.
From Boulder or from Longmont?
It's for the whole county. It's for the whole county.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
The program that we provide is for the whole county. Any participant for the county can actually participate. And so when we used to meet in person, a lot of the activities were based in Boulder. So the whole idea, was to have more activities outside Boulder. So a good percentage, probably what we were trying to say at the application was that we have a program Promotores de Salud, and under that program, we have what we call the Wellness Challenge. It's an activity, it's a 90-day program where families or individuals can actually participate for free to learn about, wellness, participate about eating better, healthy eating, reduction of sugary drinks, and exercise. So at that point, when we were meeting in person, 40% of the participants were coming from Boulder, from Longmont to Longmont, because we used to have weekly meetings with a nutritionist or with a therapist, coming to our office. We would have those meetings and those sessions in our Boulder office. So that's why the people were coming. And one of the biggest requests was that why do we not do some of these sessions in Boulder, so in Longmont? So we were doing, we have a couple of locations, during 2019, where we hosted a couple of meetings there. So we saw the participation coming more because they were in their own city. They don't have to drive over there. And that was the whole idea that we had, to really try to bring the programming to Longmont in person so they don't have to drive all the way to Longmont.
So if so a couple things. So if you have a countywide focus, which you do, so in your application you don't indicate that you are serving any residents from any of the other Boulder County communities, only Longmont and Boulder.
Yeah, we have some, from Louisville, but it's very minimal. Lafayette has more services provided by Sister Carmen. Their groups, they're based right there. So we have used their facilities to host some of the groups there. But I think the main concern has been always, we have more participants from Boulder and Longmont. And when we were in Longmont, we had more people coming. And let's give an example. We just hosted the annual conference this last weekend. When we used to host it in person, we hosted here in Boulder. So we had several women driving from Longmont to Boulder. So the whole idea again was to bring the conference or some of those activities back to Longmont, because we know Longmont is the larger community, Latino community, more than Boulder. So with this opportunity, we can provide more services there and opportunities for them to really pretty much break the barrier of transportation there. Yeah, but we have some participants from the rest of the county, especially Lafayette, but the majority of families, they actually go to programming over at Sister Carmen.
Councilwoman Christensen. Oh, I think you're still muted and you turned off your video.
Yes. I'm in it. So when you do meet in, you say you meet Carmen in Lafayette.
Yeah.
Right. Where do you meet in Boulder? I mean, in Longmont, do you meet at the Hours Center, or do you meet?
Well, we have used an office. It's a tax
like to meet?
office right there on Main Street, pretty close.
Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. You're cutting out a little bit, Polly. So, but we did hear you.
Oh, okay.
And I think Jorge is answering your question.
Yes, what
Go
I was
ahead,
gonna say-
Jorge.
Yes, we have used an office. It's a tax office, belongs to these Latina women, and we were connected by one of promotoras who lives in Longmont. This office is located on Main Street, right next to the Noa Noa. It's this Zumba studio on Main Street on Longmont. So she was really kind to offer us an office space. It's just to host up to 25 people. And we did 3 classes there back in 2019. But she offered it to us, in case that we needed to host more meetings, we could. And also, in 2019, we were able to, we wanted to collaborate with our center and use their space as well. But like I say, everything kind of put on hold in 2020 because of the same reason.
Okay.
We have worked at one point also with El Comité in Longmont too, using their space.
Yes. Well, it's pretty small space though.
Yeah. It was more like to
But
have.
the hour center has a lot of space.
Oh yeah, I know, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really kind of my next question, Jorge, is, and I think we've probably asked it every time you've applied, is the relationship or the partnership with El Comité. It really has been in the past that El Centro Amistad primarily served the Boulder area. El Comité served Longmont. So, tell us about your relationship and your partnership, and why should we fund El Centro Amistad when we have El Comité here serving the Longmont community?
Yeah, mainly is because we have different programming right now. In the past, we have been really partners in terms of really referring people from different cities. You know, from Boulder, they refer. The committee refers to Boulder. We refer people to Longmont when they live in Longmont. But it's more specifically when it's issues around advocacy or legal representation. That's something that we're not doing anymore. The legal representation or the advocacy, we're still doing the advocacy, but in other areas, more in the healthcare and equity areas. So I think one of the things that we have been trying, especially during the last year and this year, we have been collaborating with El Comité, Boulder County Public Health, really hosting those vaccination clinics. We are part of the effort for the equity clinics with them. And also we have been really providing more support to families through the recovery process through COVID, connecting those families with resources, with the promotoras that we have there. And the intention is really a standard promotora program in the city of Longmont to really provide more in-house services and connections. And our collaborations with all the organizations in Longmont has been always great. You know, we started collaborating also through the pandemic with Salud Clinic to referral patients from Longmont to the clinic, and where the promotoras identify those families in need, especially impacted by COVID, to really be referral to Salud and other resources in Longmont.
Yeah.
We have worked also with Casa Esperanza in the past as well, working with some of the families there, providing some parenting classes for the families there.
So just FYI, in your application, you really talked about referring to Clinica, but not Salud when you were talking about Longmont residents. So just FYI. So
Yeah.
because Salud is our qualified, our federal qualified health center, which you know.
Yeah.
So and then do you ask for funding from the City of Boulder?
Yes, we do. We do. We
Okay.
ask for funding. Our funding has been provided from the city of Boulder as well, just to work specifically with the emotional well-being program. You know, providing.
Is that through the Health Equity Fund primarily?
No, that's through the Human Services Fund
Okay.
in the city of Boulder. Yeah.
Okay.
To expand, wellness, emotional well-being for Latino families for free.
So we have 1 minute and 15 seconds. So are there other questions, or Jorge, is there anything that you want to make sure that we know about El Centro Amistad?
Well, if it's no more questions, well, I just want to thank you for your time today and the possibility to present the organization. And hopefully we can partner with the city of Longmont to provide more support to Latino families in the city of Longmont. And if you have any further questions, you can always reach me. You have my contact information.
Great. Thank you, Jorge. We
Appreciate it very much. Have a
Thank
great.
you.
I know. Thank you very much. Have a great night.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We have 15 minutes with each other this evening. You're seeing in front of you some of our advisory board members, and they are ready to ask you questions. You will provide the answers. Caitlin is our chair this year of the advisory board, and she will facilitate the Q&A. The timer. And if you're ready, I think we are ready.
We are ready.
Okay.
Hi, Amy. Hi, Carrie. Thanks so much for being here tonight. Are there any questions from the board or staff to get us kicked off? Eliberto.
So yeah, if I can get going first, I do have a question. I really enjoyed reading your agency strategic goals, and I would love to hear an update. This was written a while back. On you talk about a area of focus around developing a funding and financial strategy, allowing for the achievement of programmatic and human resource goals. Can you elaborate a little bit on that and tell me what ideas you have been bouncing around, or maybe you've landed on something? I just like to hear a little more about that. I appreciated reading that and just want to know a little more.
Yeah, I mean, I can start, maybe Carrie can chime in on the strategies and that kind of thing. You know, I feel like when you create a strategic plan, you have to have financial resources to support the goals that you're trying to accomplish. So some of our goals include expanded hours, summer programming, things along those lines. And that's not money that just, you know, can be produced out of an existing budget. So we've had to get creative, and we actually did run a summer program this past summer that came with CARES Act funding that we got through the federal government, being a Head Start program. So we had a good test drive on it, and we know what it costs us to do that now. So we have that. We have a couple of new partnerships, United Way being one of those that has really stepped up quite a bit over this last 2 years, I guess. Carrie, I don't know if you want to add some of the other things you're working on.
I just think there's a lot to be said for, you know, where Amy started to talk kind of about those wraparound services, whether that's summer programming, extended hours, but how are we reaching out to some of our bigger funders and asking for a little bit more money than we've gotten in the previous years to really execute these things. We're seeing such a great need, you know, in Longmont with parents needing to work and you know, if they need to be at work at 7 and we run 8 to 4, how can we make that possible for them? You know, we run the preschool program 4 days a week. What does that look like if we add in a 5th day? And is that not necessarily opening all classrooms all 5 days, but do we open a classroom per site? What would that extra funding look like? So as I'm looking towards funders, I'm trying to find, you know, extra dollars to go above and beyond. I'm sure, as many of you know, the funding that we get from Head Start doesn't cover all of what we do right now. So as I'm out there, you know, I'm looking for money for mental health services to cover that part of our program. Because again, many of you know that's a huge focus, whether it's for our own mental health, but especially for young children coming from traumatic, you know, backgrounds. And so how can we help in that realm? And how can we really, you know, when we look at it, we're a multi-generational approach. So how can we really help the families as well as the children, and then bring all of that, you know, getting towards a greater self-sufficiency. I think we're realistic in understanding that we know that we can't take every family to self-sufficiency. Boulder County's $75,000, you know, for a family of 4. That's nowhere close to what our families are doing. But I think how can we really, you know, just tap in and look for any extra funding I can find from larger individual donations, foundations, community foundations, you know, just all around. So that's really been something I'm focused on. And then how do we have the right systems? I think, you know, Amy's great at leading those strategic initiatives, as many of you know. So really starting to get some of the, you know, even better processes in place. And again, all that takes some additional funding. So that's my job, and it keeps me busy, and it keeps me employed. That answer your question?
I have a question. I would love, so one thing I noticed in your application, Do you limit your services? Do folks have to live in the city of Longmont to utilize Wild Plum Center? Is that one of the requirements?
No, so our service area for Head Start is the St. Vrain Valley portion of Boulder and Weld counties. Weld County was added about 2 years ago because of the high level of poverty that's occurring on the eastern side of Boulder County. And so, yeah, we are not exclusive to Longmont, though all of our centers are located in Longmont. So I would tell you darn near 97 or 98% of the families in our program are from Longmont.
Okay, got it. Other questions from staff or board? Karen Phillips.
Hello, welcome. I just wanted to know, how do you offer the family services? I mean, how do you do that?
Yeah, each of our families are assigned a case manager, and those folks work directly with the families in the home. Actually, they do home visiting, and they work in the beginning of the school year to identify strengths and needs of the family, and then based on their strengths and need, they develop goals with the family based on what the family is trying to achieve. That could be additional schooling, it could be better housing, it could be being able to afford food to put on the table, better jobs, job training, you name it. So those case managers are working with those families on those goals and then connecting those families to resources in the community that can facilitate that. So we're not a job training organization. We go to Workforce Boulder County for that. You know, we're not housing. We go to Boulder County and the city of Longmont for that. So it's a lot about connecting to different resources in the community, and then just giving the family somebody to bounce ideas off of and to be accountable to some extent. We have one member of our policy council that this is kind of a funny story. She said the reason why I'm in school is because I didn't want to have to face Norma and tell her I had not signed up for classes one more time. So, and she's actually just about to finish a bachelor's degree. So, yeah, that accountability, I think, is important for them working with those case managers too.
Thank you.
She talked about the first meeting, and so then they meet with them 2 other times throughout the year. So then there's that follow-up. So there's that initial meeting that she was talking about, and then they continue to meet with them throughout the year and work with them one-on-one. And we also have a program where we identify some kind of the really motivated folks that really want to, go after it. And so we kind of even meet with them on a more consistent basis to really propel them as much as we can and help them hand in hand.
And that's formal meetings 3 times a year. There's tons of informal meetings on the phone and when people are dropping their kids off and things along those lines too.
And do you go to their home, or they usually come to the school?
Well, under non-pandemic times, we go to their home. But right now, we're sort of in a combination of what the parents feel comfortable with and what the staff feel comfortable with regard to the family and their health and the number of people living in the house, and will people put on masks when you're there and that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you.
I have another question. If so, one thing I noticed is that you have a parent policy council.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to hear, you mentioned they help with hiring decisions, classroom changes, and that sort of thing. I'd love to hear about maybe one change that's been made in the last year or 2 that came from that parent policy council that has had an impact on your organization.
Let's just go with everything pandemic related. So as we have made decisions as an organization about how we're going to drop off kids, pick up kids, allow people in the buildings, not allow people in the buildings, they have been critical in those decisions. And, as we get input from or are told what we need to do from public health, we then are able to go to the parents and say, let's talk this through. What does this look like? We've not had parents in our building for 19 months. And so really working with them on what does communication look like between parents and teachers and parents and their case managers when we can't see you face to face, technology decisions, who got computers, what families needed computers, all of that has gone through our policy council over the last 19 months.
And then I would just add maybe that, I mean, we opened back up on June 1st of 2020, and that group was, we're one of the first folks back up and functioning, 4 months after this all started. And of course they were, so important in making that decision. And for the needs of what, the entire families are the parents needed. And so that helps really motivate us to, get our stuff together and make it happen in about a 3-week time frame. So that was crucial of what they needed.
Great, thank you. Karen, Roni, it seemed like you might have a question.
I do have a question. So you talked about you referenced some new studies in your proposal, new studies around Head Start effectiveness. Can you talk a little bit about those studies and what they're finding?
Karen, can you point me to where in the application that is by any chance? So I can
Somewhere. I wrote it down. So.
Carrie, because Carrie wrote the proposal. Carrie, are you able to pull us to that?
I'm gonna I'll go fishing, see if I can find it.
I'm fishing too.
I'm fishing.
I mean, I know that there's regular studies around effectiveness, and I know that there was, I'm sorry to not have a great answer for this right now. I know that there was a big study of early Head Start that happened a couple of years ago, and those results are starting to come back out. Early Head Start has been best practice, research-based, identified. It's a MICV, maternal infant home visiting collaboration. Yeah, that's not the right, I'm not saying exactly the right things that MICV stands for, but it's a MICV standard program, which it comes with quite a bit of validity for the program. So we may have been referencing that. I'm still looking. If we can come up with it in the next 3 minutes, I'll be happy to talk a little bit more specifically. And if not, I'll read and get you guys an answer.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through too, and I don't see it, but I wrote it down on my notes.
And I can't think of anything, like I'm looking at evaluation and
there were like new studies. It was because that's what it piqued my interest, because I think there's oftentimes a question about the long-term effectiveness of Head Start. And so when I saw new studies, I was curious about that. So
I do know that there was also, Karen, there was one that came out not too long ago too about the parent engagement part of Head Start and the value of that on social emotional development of children. And so that also could have been something that was referenced too. Was it in this social emotional section?
We'll all look for it. So this isn't something that's in your proposal, but I happen to know about your mobile preschool program that you are looking at trying to launch next year. Can you talk a little bit about that? I think the board might be interested.
Yeah, and I just also found the new studies. So this is specific to our program. So it is not a national Head Start. It's on page 11. And it says new studies show that children who participated in our program show that children are parenting their children, new parents who are participating in our program are parenting their children to be more successful than generations before them. So what we're seeing just sort of longitudinally for ourselves is that our parent outcomes are strengthening, and especially around the areas of work that parents are doing directly with children. So we really focus on 4 things: reading to your child daily, having positive discipline strategies, a routine, and using language-rich experiences with your children. And we're seeing strengthening of that happening year over year over year. So that's what that was. So the bus. So we're in a partnership with Mile High United Way to bring a mobile classroom space into Longmont, and it will be on a bus that Wild Plum, we think it'll be on a bus that Wild Plum owns. We're getting smarter and smarter every day about this particular project. And we're learning that, I think Karen and I had mentioned in the grant hearing for that we had no idea what the timing of retrofitting will be. Apparently there's not a retrofitter in the state of Colorado that can retrofit this bus for us, that people who are doing this work in Denver right now are sending their vehicles to Texas to have them done.
Oh,
So we're learning more about this. It is still absolutely our goal and our plan to do so. We also still have about $100,000 we need to fundraise in order to make it happen. And then the program that's operating out of Denver is making us question a bus versus like more of an airport or shuttle kind of vehicle too. So we're learning is what I will tell you about this project. It's new, it's innovative. There's only one of these that we're aware of. It's actually a program out of Denver called Rome that has 2 buses. One goes to Thornton, one goes to Globeville, Swansea, and Denver. They're quite successful with them. And I'm actually even seeing in the new licensing regulations that there's a place where they're going to license mobile preschools. So they're getting traction with the state of Colorado and the concept. So good for them. And then there's also the partnership of, or the possibility of, why would we recreate the wheel? Maybe we need to be partnering with Rome to bring this idea into Longmont instead of doing it ourselves. We still will be a part of it, and it'll be through us and driven by us and that kind of thing. But why recreate retrofitting a bus when there's a group of people that already know how to do it? So we're tossing things around right now.
okay, that sounds great. And Beulah the buzzer went off, so our 15 minutes is up.
All right, it was good to see. Did you just call that Beulah the buzzer?
Beulah the buzzer, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, good night, everybody. And good night, Beulah.
Thank you both for being here tonight.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you
Thanks for your
guys
time.
for taking the time. Thank you so much.
I'm trying to get out. It's not.
We got somebody here.
Okay. Good. There you go. Oh, yes, Vanessa, yes.
Yeah. Good evening, Vanessa. Can you hear me?
Hi, yes. Can you hear me?
We can.
Give me just a few moments. My director of development should be here.
Well, we are on the clock.
That's fine. We can go ahead and proceed. I hope I have answers for your questions. So yeah, thank you for having me this evening.
Okay, well, we'll start with the introductions, and hopefully your development director will show up. So, so this is the Housing and Human Services Advisory Board. Caitlin is the chair this year of the Housing and Human Services Advisory Board. And so we have 15 minutes together this evening. The board members have questions, and you will have answers. And then when we are, if we finish our questions before the 15 minutes ends, then there'll be time for you to add anything else that you would like to add.
Okay, great.
And so I'm going to start the timer, and Caitlin, take it away.
Hi, Vanessa. Welcome. Thank you for being here tonight.
Hi, thank you so much.
Let's start. Does anyone from the board or staff have questions to kick us off? Karen Phillips.
Vanessa, thanks for being here. I had a couple of questions. First one was, do you go out to the schools and work directly with students? Is that how that works?
Yes, so our particular program, we're kind of built on 2 levels here. So there's our central staff who does the administration part, and then our program is solely focused on being on site and working directly with our students.
You go to the school, you go to the high school?
Yes. We have several different sites in different areas of Boulder County and Weld County. And so I believe we have about 11 or 12 different cohorts in operation right now across not only the school district, but public housing entities as well.
So do you like pull the kids out of the classroom and then you tutor them, or do you go with them? Or I was just trying to understand how that looks.
Sure. So our program is 39 weeks a year, 5 days a week. It's after school. And we do everything from one-on-one mentoring to tutoring to establishing goals, building confidence, and working alongside our students to really kind of build up what their intentions are and what they see that their future is, and how we can work alongside them to move whatever those goals are with them forward. We start with them through first grade and then work to and through high school. And then of course, our newest thing is working to and through their post-secondary option as well. So we try and have the same program director with them through their entire class with us. And then we do have individualized one-on-one case management so that our students are able to build those trusting and healthy relationships with adults so that they can have peers and mentors to look up to help make those decisions as they move forward.
And how do you qualify students for the program?
Sure, our students are qualified based on their qualification for free and reduced lunch. 100% of the students that we serve qualify for that program, and that's how we identify them, I guess, into our program.
And then the other question was, do parents need to be involved?
Parents do not necessarily need to be involved, but we do have a very strong aspect in incorporating our families and our parents / caregivers. And so we make sure that they are set up for success by incorporating those relationships. A lot of our programs, the feedback that we receive are from both our students or scholars, as well as our parents, so that we're able to fully serve and work alongside that particular community. So that we're really reflecting our work based off of what their needs are and how we can best assist them in what what talents they already have, what their ambitions already are. We also have a new program called Parents as Learners, where we're really focusing on bridging that achievement gap for our older caretakers and individuals, because a lot of those individuals, our parents and caretakers, weren't able to accomplish the dreams and the timelines that they really deemed necessary. So we're really trying to provide opportunity for them to go back and really bridge that gap and fracture that cycle of poverty. So we're really moving into a 2-generation model that not only supports our students from the get-go, but also connects our parents back into that same era so that they know that their dreams are possible still as well, despite the challenges that they have faced or the timing hasn't been right or things like that. So we do have a strong parent element, and we're definitely moving on a focus to create a stronger program for that as well.
Thank you.
Vanessa, one of the things that differentiates your program from a lot of the types of programs that we fund or that we may see in our communities is the long-term nature of it. You go from 1st through 12th grade. So you've got, 12 years that you're working with a scholar. Is that right? Yes, 12.
Yep.
But I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about what, what the churn, I don't know what the right term is. Like how large is a class to start with? Where do you end up? What happens, if folks move away, or you mentioned the free and reduced lunch. What happens if something happens and they're no longer eligible for free and reduced lunch, when the kid enters 6th grade? Can you talk a little bit about what that trajectory looks like for the students and families?
Sure. Oh gosh, that's a great one. I'm only 4 months in, so let's see how good I can deliver this. Okay. Whew, that was a lot. So our students, we take a whole child approach. Well, we're starting to take a whole child approach and moving that starting really early. I'm so sorry. Can you repeat your really big question one more time?
Yes, I'm sorry. I put a lot of information in there. Let me start small. How, if you start with a class, I don't know how many students are in sort of a class or a cohort. how many typically start and how many typically finished?
Sure. So typically we have anywhere from, I believe it's 30 to maybe 35, 45, 40, 30, 40 students in any cohort, in one cohort at any given time. Those students are once again supported from first to and through high school. If a child becomes ineligible, that's not something that affects us. We continue to host that child through the program. I believe, I'm not entirely sure what happens if they become not eligible anymore for free and reduced. I don't know if they become guests. We also have that position as well. So if you come into the program later in your primary education, say second, third, fifth grade, sixth grade, something like that, you're then considered a scholar guest. Because our program is really focused on supporting the child and the student from 1st to 12th grade. With that, at the end of graduation or the end of your term, students are eligible for $10,000 scholarship, which then proceeds to put them through or fund some of their post-secondary option, whether that's a 4-year college, a 2-year vocational training program, whatever their option is that they decide, that money goes directly to them. For a student that comes in the middle of the program, I believe that they're deemed as guests. I don't know if they're eligible for the $10,000. I want to say they're not, just because that money
Vanessa,
is.
I'm going to interrupt you. Is
Sure.
Chris Beach Chris Beach? Is she your development person?
Her name is Danielle Staunton.
Okay, I don't know who this is.
So I'm not sure.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry, I thought if she was, I'd let her in.
Oh no, her name is Danielle.
Okay.
And so even if a student becomes ineligible for the free lunch program, I believe that we still support them in terms of our programming. And then if they come in the middle of the long-term program, I believe that they're not eligible for the 10 grand, which is something we are currently working on, because that money is designated for a specific class and a student success. It's very tricky on how that works right now, but I do know that we are refocusing what those priorities look like, since we're able to really supply that money, hopefully, and really move some of those students forward.
Great, thank you. Other questions from staff or board members?
Wait, was there a part B of that question?
I think you covered what I was looking for, so that's fine.
Okay.
So I do have a question.
Sure.
So there are in your application, you all talked about several different goals that the agency is working on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to list what those are. And what I would like you to do is maybe to talk about some specific actions that you are taking to meet some of these strategies. So maybe just comment on a couple of them. So it is, those strategies are equitable board and hiring practices, clear inclusion of Dreamer scholars and their family voices, increased individual staff development, adapted fundraising strategies, transparency as an organization, and accountability from staff and volunteers on racial equity. So if you would just maybe take one or two of those and talk about some specific strategies that you are implementing to address that.
Sure. I think just in terms of racial equity, we are so excited to have a new executive director and CEO, Dr. Perla Delgado. She's a fantastic leader. She's a woman and person of color. Those are her identities. And so I think with our previous 30 or our previous 29 years with I Have a Dream Foundation, it's been found that our approaches have been really kind of deficit-based, and having this really deficit-based lens towards the community that we serve, the individuals we work with, and also, has been a hindrance having a board that isn't incorporating our community as well as it has. So we've been really lucky to have Perla come in this last year and really kind of reframe what our priorities are. And so with that, making our board more equitable by including parents, by including alumni who have been in the program and understand what we do on site and in the field, and can bring that to the table and really have those discussions with our board is really, really important. A lot of what we have done in the past has been very academic focused and based. And while that's something that's still very important to us, we're really starting to move towards a model that's really reflective of who we serve. And so that's things like I said, just making sure our parents are incorporated and that those voices are heard, and not only that they're heard, but that those voices are executed in the work that we're doing. Like I said, a lot of our history has been very deficit-based lens, and it's been showcased in the work and in the reflection of the community has brought this to us. And so our CEO has really taken a lot of time to really hone in on the whole child approach and what that looks like. So we're no longer, you know, just looking for the straight A's and passing the SATs and, you know, math and science. We're really approaching things from a asset-based lens, which is including our new Representation Matters initiative, which is making sure that our students are learning curriculum that's reflective of who they are. And their community and their history and their culture, and really bringing that to the forefront. A lot of our students, you know, in just basic public schooling don't have that kind of curriculum and aren't taught those things. So that's something we're really working towards. In terms of our parents, which is, I think, one of the more important factors, like I said, is just making sure that those voices are heard and that they're being executed in our proper programming. To know that we've been doing a disservice of sorts within the work that we've been doing for so long has been a really hard reflection for a lot of our organization. And so moving that forward, we've had a lot of longstanding people who have stood by us, and our board members we've even had a little bit of a discrepancy with in terms of that equity piece, because they're still focused on SATs and academics and making sure those things are secured away because we have to get straight A's, when in reality our program is really focusing more on honing in on the talents and the skills that our students already have and growing those capabilities for them. And so we're actually really taking a step back and bringing the community and the scholars and the families that we serve into the circle, and bringing them to the forefront so that we can address those issues wholeheartedly, because in the past it hasn't been addressed. And I think those two. Is there one more you want to throw at me? I think.
Well, that's fine. That's good.
I think those were the two most important that are crucial to the work that we're currently moving forward in.
Other questions? I suspect we're getting close to the Beulah the buzzer time limit, but
So I did have another question.
Sure.
So so I didn't see, I might have missed it in the proposal, but I didn't see any metric that reports out on post-secondary achievement from your dreamers. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So some of our metrics are really, we've actually reevaluated our outcomes this year. Like I said previously, there were things like, you know, obtaining that degree and getting a GED and those things like that. But we're really focused on that post-secondary journey as well, because the support can't just stop right after high school, right? College, vocational training, those things get even more difficult with becoming an adult and all these things. And so in terms of post-secondary, one of the biggest things we're reflecting on, which is again, is emphasizing the whole child, is how are these individuals feeling when they're making these decisions to move forward? Do they feel empowered? Do they feel like they have the self-love and the self-knowledge to make these goals and feel confident in those decisions moving forward? And how can we best support them? So in terms of our metrics, it's just making sure, or trying to ensure and work alongside students to help them move into that post-secondary journey, and then providing the same, not the same, but a more progressed and aligned with and growth period for them in their post-secondary journey. So in terms of us and, in terms of the obtaining a 4-year degree, in terms of them obtaining, a vocational certificate, while that's a really large metric for us, our focus is on how they're feeling about their journey and what they're moving towards. And if they feel confident enough in actually achieving those dreams. So things like internships and apprenticeships and partnering with business partners and community partners, 4-year colleges, vocational training, all of those things, having those partners in our corner, which we have, and ensuring that there's not only, exposure, but access and opportunity for them to see themselves in these positions and feeling confident about that. And so that's really where our post-secondary journey and support is going through.
All right, great. And the timer has gone off. So we have concluded our time with you. And I'm going to see if this was your development director that's been waiting. So,
Thanks for being here, Vanessa.
Thank you so much. My gosh, that hot seat though. Jeez Louise. Thank you guys. It was great meeting all of you. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi. So I was just checking. Were you here for I Have a Dream?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I'm here for Intercambio.
Okay, good. Well, so we were trying to figure out who you were. So
I know my name was under my husband, so I'm switching it.
Oh, okay. So so we're ready. So I'm going to let in your other two counterparts here. How about that? Okay, great. Good evening, Erica.
Erica and
Norma.
Norma.
And Carolina.
All right. Good evening, everyone from Intercambio. So we have 15 minutes that we will be spending together this evening to review your proposal. So we have questions, you'll have answers, and you'll have 15 minutes. And if we have any time at the end before the timer goes off, you certainly can add to whatever it is that you think we should know about Intercambio and your proposal. Caitlin Abbott is our chair this year, so she will be facilitating the Q&A period. And I am your timer, so I'm gonna get that rolling. And we're ready. Begin.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being here tonight. Is there anyone from the board or staff that has a question that would to kick us off? Karen Phillips.
Hi, and welcome. I just was curious about your access to computers. Do you hand those out to people, or how does that kind of work?
Norma, do you want to take that one?
Sure. Well, we are hosting our classes online since the pandemic until now, and our students has been able to get their devices that they needed. Sometimes we have, devices donated for some community members that we'll give it to them, but we are not providing to them. They are using that phone or the computer, And, sometimes we know that one student is struggling and really want to take the classes. We are trying to find a computer for them, but it's not something that we are providing.
Because we mail everyone a paper curriculum, a lot of people do their classes on the phone, because the part that's the virtual part would be just looking at the teacher's face or looking at the other classmates, but they would have then the paper curriculum in front of them to work through it.
Very good. How often do you have class?
We have classes how often? Twice a week. We have classes. We have a set of classes in the morning when we host all our levels from level intro through level 6 twice a week, Monday and Wednesday in the morning, and the same set of classes in the evening, Tuesday and Thursday. Twice a week the students take the class, and we also have our group of classes one-on-one that they usually meet twice a week as well.
And so they communicate online then? Is that what happens?
Yes. We have our classes setting, everyone is starting at the same time. Like, for example, for the group classes, like right now, this is on a call that we have made at, at 7:20. It's the same for our student. We have been training over 500 students on how to use Zoom and how to be mute, how to be on breakout rooms, how to be quiet. And, we have been training besides those our English classes, they have been learning a lot about technology as well as our volunteers. Everyone has been trained on that, and we developed our own training on how to handle those classes. And I'm very, very happy and proud of our students, because I can tell you that 95% of our students right now, they are using that on emails, and they have been embracing the new ways of communications that we have right now with this pandemic that has been throwing out us, in this new world. In the majority of our students, we're still having a lot of communication through text message, but we say, check your email. And it has been incredible, because the majority of our students, they never used Zoom before, neither an email address.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions?
So I have a question. I guess what I'm interested in is some of the equity strategies that you have incorporated since 2017. So you mentioned in your proposal that you have 4 working groups, and those 4 groups are marketing, community advocacy, programming, and internal structures. So I'm just curious, over the past 3 or 4 years, what strategies have you enacted in those areas that have that have improved how your agency operates?
Norma, do you want me to start, or?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, we didn't plan ahead who was going to say what, of course. So so I'm Erica Carlson. I'm the Grants and Evaluation Manager. And Norma, we didn't introduce ourselves, is our Director of, do you now have a different title? Local Services, All Students and Volunteer Programs within Boulder County?
No, Boulder, Director of Boulder County Program.
Yeah. We're just shifting a little. Anyway.
And manage the program.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, with all those different committees, like one thing that came out from a marketing perspective was just really diving deep into how we communicate about our classes. And we had a board member lead a committee where we came up with kind of like a guidebook of, instead of saying we empower people, we say we help people access skills, like just talking about some very specific language to use that reflects us. And we didn't find that necessarily this was a huge problem, that it was not being used correctly, but it was like, how do we really use our language to back up the things that we're working on internally. I know that we also have done a lot of work on the board level. We have a lot of new board members now, including one person who is a son of one of our very first students. So I've noticed that trend on the board. Carolina, you could talk about what you guys are doing on the board level as well. And then also internally working on, right now we're doing a salary equity survey, because we did a survey of all our staff. And one of the major things that came up was people not really understanding about how we make decisions about promotion and salaries. So we are doing right now a salary equity, I don't know, we hired someone to come and look at all these issues and create a comprehensive strategy so we can really be prioritizing, emphasizing those, paying people for those skills like cultural broker skills and bicultural skills and things like that, because it's without having a structure in place, it's harder to sort of say, oh, well, we're going to pay more for this or that. So just having a real formal structure to emphasize those things. Carolina, do you want to talk about what's happening on the board level in equity?
In equity, from an equity perspective, I think we're just kind of on a sounding board, kind of making sure that what Intercambio is doing in those equity areas is doesn't deviate from its organization and from original intent of what they wanted to do. So kind of it's a checks and balances. We also provide them obviously with a lot of guidance to make sure that they stay within their strategies that they have been working on since 2017.
Norma, do you have anything about the equity stuff? I mean, the 4 different committees, I'm trying to think back to what each one was doing. You know, I know that the internal one was the one that came out with this salary study as a concern, and one we're addressing right now. Are there other ones, Norma?
Well, we just, are working and trying to identify the gaps that we have in order to be successful in our jobs. For example, in the program, I can tell you like that I have 2 team made that they had, they were a student and now they are part of the program of the staff, and they have been promoted to be a supervisor. And we are looking for resources to support them and how to develop those skills that they needed. We also, I'm very excited and very happy that we are going to hire a new person in my team in program, and we are trying to find diversity. And we had 2 candidates, one from China, another one from Nepal, and we'll see, who will be hired in order to support our student and also provide us, the best customer service as possible, and enroll, be representing, another diversity, not only Latinos, because we have so many diversity in our community, and that's something that we very strategically, we are doing, especially in programs team.
Eliberto.
Hola, Norma. Hey, Erica.
Hola, sí, en español.
So I mean, I got the email from Jenny, went out. I don't think it's secret that that Lee is stepping away from the ED role, which and I guess I'm wondering what where the organization is in that process. What does it look like for your partners in the immediate future, and then in the longer term future, what is Lee leaving that role? I know he'll still be involved in some form or fashion, but what does it mean and what does it look like?
Mm-hmm. Well, I can share what I know so far, but has been in the almost a year, almost 2 years, year and a half, I don't feel that Lee was happy with all the changes the pandemic has bringing to us, that he wants to bring more changes into the organization. Since the pandemic, we have been made, so much changes, and Intercambio, we have been so blessed and lucky that our community, our partners, our students still believing on us, still trusting on us. And even though with the pandemic, we still very stable with the amount of students that we have, with the amount of volunteers and partners. And Intercambio is, in the stage right now where we are nationwide, and we still increasing, growing. And Lee, we, the board and Lee, and everyone has been doing a very deep evaluation, I think, to try to find the best skills that we have and be on the best position that we can be. And using, Lee wants to do something else. He's very excited about the growth that we has been having. And that's why he's stepping back, but still, working with Intercambio, but in that nationwide, focus on nationwide and having an ED that can keep leading that organization, here in our Boulder County or Intercambio here is the allowed for everything that we will be doing nationwide or we are doing now. And, you know, we are on the process that they are almost finished that to develop the job description and be very clear about the roles. That's what I think we are, and we are very close to start making the more public announcement about it.
And I mean, the bottom line is that the bottom line is our Boulder County program is not something we're worried about. We are strong and have been for so many years. And it's more that we're looking to the future of how do we become an organization that maybe one day doesn't need a lot of donor funding and government funding, but can be, we've been really excited that what the pandemic has brought for us, which is this opportunity to go online and more nationwide than what we ever were before. And so what we're looking at is Lee is recognizing his ability to start this new thing of nationwide, but then where he wanted to get somebody in place who can really spearhead us going into the future. So that's kind of where the focus is on that. And locally, we have Norma and so many staff that are really solid in keeping our local programs available and accessible to all our students. And then also because we're doing this national expansion, it's going to have an online component for people to learn and teach English for all the country. So we already have some people in Longmont participating in that pilot, and we anticipate in the future, people who can't get to the office for classes or have other challenges with their schedules will be using that in the future. So it's going to be a huge growth opportunity, not just for us around the country, but also here in Boulder County and in Longmont.
Mm-hmm.
I can add to that in terms of what we have been working with through the board. We have done, I think you mentioned, what do the partners think? We've done focus groups with both our partners and donors as well as staff to kind of make sure that everybody understands kind of where it's headed and why it's going in that direction. And I think both Norma and Krista kind of mentioned the pandemic brought in a lot of opportunities. We have the CC, what is
English?
The online confidence and conversations that we're allowing our volunteers to take advantage. I think it was intended to provide another tool for students here in the county, but we realized that the national level also is something that could be used. Through the pandemic, we were involved through Intercambio on doing some conversations on race and equity, which allowed some of our students and immigrants and our volunteers to talk about race and equity. What does it mean? How does it impact us? How can we contribute in helping with that? And I think that with those two areas that are allowing Intercambio to expand our needs to our immigrants, to educate them not only in English, but what is also happening within our community and our nationwide. It's been very well received. We've had a couple of conversations and through pilots, and we've had really, really good reviews in terms of, yes, this is something that the students can use, the volunteers can also benefit from it. And it allows us to be more connected as a community, I think, as we educate them, not only English, but practicing their English through new topics. I don't know. So I think Lee found that he needs to expand on that area, and it's very difficult to keep his focus on what's going on here currently in our community and what we want to do national. So he felt if I step down or step to the side and let the local program continue to operate as it is and expand our national program, it would benefit Intercambio in the long run a lot better.
In our immigrant community, nationwide.
Karen Roney. I saw your digital hand go up, but then she took out. You're muted.
On mute.
I didn't mean for my hand to go up. I think
Okay.
I was trying to sneeze. So sorry, doing too much. So our buzzer did go off. So we have concluded our 15 minutes unless someone else is dying to ask a question.
Oh, that's so fast.
We just want to thank you all for your work, because we know we're having to come in late at night, but you are too. So thank you all.
Yes, I just want to add, 41% of the students that we have active right now are from Longmont, of 265 students that are taking classes right now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Adios, Eli.
We're available if you have other questions, where you know where to find us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I didn't know Lee was moving on. So when did that happen?
What? You didn't get the email?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I got the email about 3 weeks ago. He made the announcement
Yeah.
that he'll still be involved, but he's stepping back as the
Yeah.
ED of Intercambio. Change, Karen, change.
It's happening everywhere. Okay, so I am going to let Emily in.
Hi.
Good evening, Emily. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. So will it just be you this evening?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So you see in front of you the Housing and Human Services Advisory Board, plus a couple staff members thrown in. And we have the next 15 minutes that we will use to ask questions about your application. Caitlin
Wonderful.
is our chair of for the advisory board this year, so she will facilitate the process. I will keep the time, and maybe Emily, why don't you introduce who you are and your role in the agency, and we will get started.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me and giving me time. My name's Emily Kleeman, and I'm the Executive Director of the Reentry Initiative.
Okay, we're ready.
Great. Thanks for being here tonight, Emily. As we get started, is there anyone from board or staff that have questions to get us started? Karen Phillips.
Hi, Emily.
Hi.
Thanks for being here. I just was wanting to know about how someone becomes an eligible member.
Yes, we have a relationship with the Longmont Parole Office, where that is where one point of contact where we'll see a lot of our members come through. When they get out of prison, they have to report to parole. So usually the parole officer will do a brief assessment of their basic needs and mental health needs, and then they'll put a referral into our program if it's the best fit for the individual.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions?
So I have one. So the Reentry Initiative started out primarily serving women, if I'm correct, and now you serve men also through the grant that you a 2-year grant. So talk about the shift of your agency's mission from really being focused on women to being focused on men and women, and talk about that decision and what happens when the 2-year grant is complete.
Great. Great question. So when I came on, they were still serving just women, only from Denver Women's Correctional Facility, and only offering a 6-month behavioral curriculum, behavioral cognitive behavioral treatment curriculum, which was aimed at helping women address the way that they were thinking and the way that they were handling trauma situations, but it wasn't really addressing the trauma. And at the same time, the women were from a vast majority were from outside the Longmont area. So they were ending up running into some red tape in regards to having them being able to be placed in Longmont at our transitional housing home that we had, which was called Tri-House. So when I came on, I really started looking at the budget and looking at the programs we were offering, and actually talking to Longmont Parole about the actual needs of what was needed in the community. And from a lot of conversations with them and being approached by the Latino Coalition to be another community partner to serve all individuals on parole in a certain county, it just made sense. Okay, let's try it. Let's do a welcome back center, which is like a wraparound support center for people on parole, which is different from Bridge House. And let's pioneer it and see how that goes. Well, fast track now, 2 years later, we're really in the throes of it. I will tell you, it's primarily male, our membership, and there's a small population of females, and it's growing, but that's really indicative of who's coming out through parole. So rather than staying so small, I felt it was really a good idea to branch out, be more inclusive, but also stay true to the Pioneer program. So not only did we expand outside, but we went inside to Denver Women's, and we really grew that program into what it is today, which is now a 2-year-long pre-release program. And we're actually bringing in the new curriculum this year, which is what's in our grant, which is more gender responsive and evidence-based. So we're just evolving with the need, and that's kind of why I decided as a leader, maybe we'll take these chances that we have these opportunities, and it's really worked out pretty well for us.
Other questions from the board? Or Karen, you're muted.
See that? Thank you.
Yep.
So when you say it's working out pretty well for your agency, talk about what that really means. Like, what would be your measurement of doing well and working well, and what your recidivism rate, or how do you measure the success of your program?
Great question. So we have, for the Welcome Back Center with that grant, we have 4 different measurements that came with the grant. We had to measure the amount of people we enroll every year, which we had to meet 72 total a year. Then we had to do how many we place in either employment or in a vocational training program. That was, we had a 60%, if I'm not mistaken, goal mark on that. And then we had how many stay employed for 90 days or complete a certification after about 90 days to 6 months. And that's again, another 50% benchmark. And then the recidivism rate has to stay below 20% of your total population. So throughout the 2 years that we got started, by the time we wrote this grant, we're actually, we succeeded going into this year, all of those benchmarks, which is very, very good for a new nonprofit, which is what I mean by we've stabilized and the members are getting what they need. They're accessing services sooner. They're staying employed. They're utilizing what is offered to them. And we're seeing the growth has been, it's been expansive in that when we open our doors with the Welcome Back Center, we now have walk-ins daily. We've made a little front desk reception area. So when they come in, they feel very greeted. So it's word of mouth. Members are talking to other people they know that are on parole and saying, go over to Try. And we also have the Try Shop that's now in-house, which also serves as a place where they can get clothing, household goods, hygiene, things of that nature that they might not have when they're released, and it's all for free. And we make it very boutique-y, so it feels like they can go shopping. So it just kind of brings back that like first steps back into the real world without having to go to Walmart, which can be very overwhelming for someone transitioning out of prison. So does that help answer or clarify?
So what is the recidivism rate?
Right now, it's under 10%. I think it was at 8. It was about averaging between 8 and 9% at the end of the year, which was June 30th. But we were over enrolled. So we had served 72 mid last quarter, and then we were over enrolled when we rolled into the first of the quarter. So things are picking up. It's stabilizing again. We did see an influx over the summer, but I think it's kind of leveling off again right now.
Thank you.
Thanks. Other questions? I am sorry, Karen. I have one question, and then we'll follow up with you if that works for you. Sorry. So one of the things that you talked about in the application was around inclusive board and staff practices. I wonder if you could talk about the protocols that were put in place around diversity, equity, and inclusion that came out of, you know, sort of your work there, and what are the action steps that you've actually taken for that?
Yes, we actually just were working on our strategic plan. So that's actually one of our strategies on our strategic plan is a whole step list on what needs to occur. So it starts with staff development. I'm bringing in training to do oppression and white privilege and talking about that. We're also the way that we're hiring and the way that we're staffing, we're making sure to be inclusive. We also are a second chance employer. So we will work with people with a criminal background history. And then our board has been very aggressive and out there seeking more board membership in general, obviously keeping in mind diversity and inclusion and equity. And we've also approached a couple of our women are now at that point where they are no longer accessing our services. They've been off of our services for over a year. And we're getting to that place where we're trying to start opening those discussions about them joining as an advisory board. Maybe even growing that into a board member. We just want to give enough time so that they don't feel overwhelmed with a position of that nature. But a couple of our women are really interested in joining us. And then I've also approached a couple of our women that are currently doing our curriculum inside and have been working with us the last 2 years. And I've asked them to be peer co-facilitators in our inside program. I felt it was it brings something different to the curriculum. And after working with Dr. Stephanie Covington, she definitely said that is something I should work towards, and allowing this inside program to evolve where the women inside are then leading it and they can then follow outside and teach outside with us. So lots of different access points where we're working on diversity.
Karen Phillips, you had a question.
Yeah, I was just wanting to know, is like everyone welcome that comes? There's no one on a waiting list, or everybody's able to just—
There's no waiting list right now. We're blessed in that pretty much we can get people in pretty quickly. And that's why I set up the Try Shop. That is one of those services that they can come in the day of. They don't have to be enrolled. They can come in and anytime they can grab whatever they need. So we're trying to reduce barriers. And I'm actually even today was thinking about different ways to change the culture of individuals that may not be engaging, and what does that look like to get them to engage, and why, maybe they don't trust the system, and what does that look like in our population, and what do we need to do and change so that they feel comfortable accessing our services, because at times they can feel like we are another part of the bigger system.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right. Are there other questions from Karen Roney? I thought you might. I saw the blue, the color change from the reflection, and I was like, oh, she's pulling up her question.
I'm pulling up my notes.
I know that look.
So I'm just wondering, how would you, because you're a fairly new agency, you've gone through some, transition. So, how would you characterize the financial stability of the Reentry initiative?
I would say that it's getting stronger. When I came on, we had a very small budget. And then we brought on a very sufficient grant to fund the Welcome Back Center. Always thinking ahead, what happens after that goes away. And we also at the same time started a Medicaid grant so that we could be serving our individuals because they're on Medicaid through the Medicaid services. So I did get us already through the Medicaid process. I got us credentialed with our CCHA. And then we're also going to branch out with the sistering neighborhoods so that we can have access to all the different Medicaid regions. So we're trying, that was my financial plan. And on top of that, we have a very strong fundraising plan, a great development team. My board is very, very active, and I have a lot of faith in them to continue to keep this momentum going year to year.
I think
We have 1 minute and 45 seconds left.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us, Emily, about your organization or the programs that you're supporting for next year?
Well, I'm just very proud of what the board and the staff have created. It is just a 2-woman full-time show, myself and Jody, who's my program manager of the Welcome Back Center. And then we have a rock star team of clinical master level interns and volunteers who come in to really help us go day to day with our operations. So we're just really hopeful to continue to grow so that we can find the next great staff person who's going to join our team and help us with this mission. And I just really appreciate the time we've had tonight. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for being here tonight. And we appreciate your time.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
So sorry, Caitlin, I have to go off camera to blow my nose. So,
you're fine.
I cough. So that's why I'm trying to do that.
I went off camera to take a couple bites of my dinner.
That's what I'm doing when I go off camera.
I'm like, nobody needs to see me chewing, even if you can't hear me.
So I think, oh, there's the time. So I think Matt is on here. So if you're ready, we can go ahead and get started. You ready, Caitlin? 1 minute. Oh, chewing.
Okay, I'm good. I don't know if everybody else is good.
I will let Matt in. So Matt, are you there?
Don't you gotta hit like star something? Oh, I don't remember. I remember with Zoom, it's you gotta hit star something.
Star 6?
Star 6 toggles the mute and unmute.
So if you can hear us, Matt, hit that star 6. And I'm not sure, Karen, as a host, if you can unmute him directly.
I can ask him to unmute. So let's see. Let me see what I can do. Nope. I can pin him. I can rename him. I can put him back in the waiting room, remove him, or report him. I don't think he wants me to do any of those things.
We let him in a little early, so maybe he'll be able to unmute.
I think it's star 6. Does that sound right?
That is correct. I double checked on the Zoom thing. Help something over here that I looked at.
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, hi, this is not Matt. This is Lorena Garcia calling in extremely late and unprofessionally to our meeting that we missed earlier.
Okay, well,
And
we are ready to do basically the TLC. They're the next ones up.
Sure, yes, of course. I was just hanging out in the waiting room to see if there was time to make up for our missed meeting. You can throw me out and put me back into the waiting room if you'd like.
So I'm going to put you back in the waiting room. How about that?
That sounds great.
Okay. I'm going to figure out how to do that. Okay, I'm putting you back in the waiting room. Hi, Sherry. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. All right. So I think this might be Matt.
Matt is out of the country.
Well, there won't be Matt.
It won't be Matt. It's Amy French Troy.
Okay. Someone from TLC.
Yes,
Hello.
it's Amy French Troy.
Hello, Amy. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Okay. So, welcome. We have 15 minutes to basically ask you questions about your application that you submitted to the City of Longmont for 2022 funding. Caitlin Abbott is our chair this year, and we have advisory board members and staff members here that will be that are prepared to ask you questions about your application. I will keep time. We have 15 minutes, and if we run out of questions before we run out of time, you will have an opportunity to tell us anything else that you think we need to know. And why don't you go ahead and start by introducing yourselves and your role with the agency, and then we'll get started.
Sure. I'm Sherry Carmen. I'm an occupational therapist, and I'm also the therapeutic services manager over at TLC. I've been there for over 20 years.
And I'm Amy French Troy. I'm a former TLC parent, and I just joined TLC this past year as their development manager.
All right, great. Okay, the clock is now ticking.
Welcome, Sherry and Amy. Thanks for being here tonight. To kick us off, any members of the board or staff have questions? Karen Phillips.
Hi, thanks for joining us. The parent program, do all the parents attend to that program?
The Parent Toolkit Night.
Yeah.
So it's available to all parents. They don't all attend. But I will say we had challenges.
So Sherry, we can't hear you very well, so maybe you want to turn your video off and just have your audio.
Because of COVID, because it usually is a
Yes. Sherry, you're breaking
like
up.
a dry lay. Okay.
We can't hear you, Sherry. You're breaking up.
Yeah, yeah. Try it again there, Sherry.
Okay, so do you want me to start over?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Please. Okay. Okay. So it is the Parent Toolkit Night, which we're now calling Caregiver Toolkit Night as part of our equity and diversity commitment for this coming year. It's offered to all caregivers, but not all caregivers attend. And then last year with COVID, we ended up having to be very creative because we couldn't see any caregivers in the center. So we did a drive-through since the families are coming through the kind of like a valet style. So we had a different poster board up every week. We did a 6-week kind of toolkit on how to get your kid, how to help your kids have their best day. So we talked about how to give choices, how to have routines established and things like that. And we're committed. We're in the process right now of doing a survey to our caregivers for this coming year's Caregiver Toolkit nights.
Thank you.
Other questions?
So I do have a question.
Karen,
go ahead.
Marnie, go ahead.
Yep. So in your application, you didn't really talk a lot about your agency strategic goals. And so would like to give you that opportunity now to talk about, again, not your program goals, but your strategic goals for the agency and, where you're headed and what you want to work on as an agency in the future. Guess that's yours, Amy.
I'll answer it as best I can. Being new on board here, our agency goals right now, I think a big part of our focus as a center is we're facing a lot of the same hardships that most other early child centers are around the country. And so our main goals right now are to hire and retain staff, and also to be able to provide more families with childcare, because there's such a deficit in Colorado right now. I think there's 3 children for every available slot in the childcare system. So I think moving forward, we're looking to how can we better support I feel like we've been trying to support the community in a lot of different ways with regards to kids with special needs over the years. But I think now we're seeing like there's a greater crisis going on as a society over how we're going to take care of all of these kids. So I think that's what we've really been focusing on.
So what is your, so I know hiring and retaining staff is a huge area. So what are you thinking about doing as an agency, as a childcare agency or early learning agency to address that?
Well, they've been trying to incentivize hiring as much as possible, giving people hiring bonuses, giving people money for continuing education. A lot of the people that work in our classrooms have associate's degrees. And so there is some funding now for early childhood care people to be able to work towards their bachelor's and have their bachelor's paid for, because I think the state, I know that the state and the federal government are recognizing that there's such a shortage for teachers. So our director, Matt, has been really involved at the state level and at the county level, trying to work with other agencies to see how we can sort of solve this problem. But I think the main thing is going to be that we're going to have to get some sort of, help from higher like the state to help pay people it's hard to get people to keep a job like that. You're working with kids with special needs who are potty training, doing all the regular toddler and preschool things, and they're making not, as much as they probably could working at McDonald's. So what's the incentive for people to come into this profession? So I think we've been trying to look at ways that we can not just hire for the short term, but what can we do? This is an ongoing issue. So what can we do to sort of remedy this situation looking ahead down the road? Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Great. I'd love to know, I'm looking at board demographics. I'm wondering if what the organization is doing or if there are any plans for diversification, particularly around race and culture on the board.
That's been an ongoing issue for a couple of years. It's been hard to recruit those board members. So they have been doing, I'm speaking to this as I'm not in those board meetings, so I'm going to speak on behalf of Matt as best as I can. They are doing increasing their training around equity issues, and I think trying to make the existing board members a little bit more aware of the urgency of the situation. Because we can't, in my opinion, we have to be able to represent the demographics of our community, right? So we need to make sure that those voices are on the board and we're hearing what they have to say. So they have been being pretty strategic about types of people they're looking for to fill positions, people reaching out into the community to sort of have people sort of in the wings, that people in mind that they can reach on as other members come off of the board. How can they pull on more diverse members onto the board? So I would say they've been doing some training, they've been working on some recruitment, but I think that has been more challenging for them. I wish we had somebody from the board here that could speak to that better than I can, but.
Okay, thank
Well,
you.
maybe we'll ask Sherry because she's been around for 20 years. So, so what is your knowledge about what, what Matt and the board are really trying to do to increase the board diversity?
I think Amy does speak, or I know she does speak on behalf of Matt and the board, and I know that they they do try to recruit as best as they can. Again, I'm also not in those meetings, but I do know that in general, the talk has been much more about equity and diversity and matching the demographic of the board with who we are. So it's up front, it's up there.
Karen Phillips.
But didn't you, I remember last year, didn't you all say that you have people on your board that their children or they have handicap knowledge and they have that kind of thing?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
so you do have a percentage of people on the board that your organization represents.
We do, absolutely. But I think when you're talking about ethnicity,
right,
which I believe is what Caitlin was asking about, that yes.
But okay, thank you.
But yes, we have physicians, which helps to represent our medical side that we see. We have former or parents of kids that were either in the early learning or kids in currently a child with therapy needs that was seen in our therapy department.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Karen Roney.
So right now you could serve up to 90 children in your current space. Do you have all of those slots filled, or what's your percentage of slots filled?
The slots that are not filled are, I would say, primarily not filled because of the need for teachers. So we do tours on a weekly basis. Lisa, who's my counterpart in educational services, does tours. I believe twice a week. I do tours with kids with therapy needs weekly, and we have a waiting list. It's finding staff that we can retain in order to be able to.
So then how many slots do you have filled out of the 90? Do you know?
I don't know the answer to that right now. I would say, I know we have openings in our toddler classroom right now and one preschool classroom.
Yeah, I want to say it's around 60 to 65.
Okay.
It may be higher than that. It was the number thing with the lack of staffing has been tricky, and also because of the inclusion model, you have to have 60% typically developing children with 40%. It's like really hard to maintain that balance, that ratio all the time. So that's tricky too.
Yep. Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about your experience during COVID? I know a lot of local childcare centers have had openings and closings, and especially with younger kids not being subject to, masking, if they're under two, for example, under the Boulder County health orders. What has been the effect of that for TLC?
Well, I think our numbers went down, obviously, like everyone else's for a while there, and then we were able to reopen. Some challenges have been in There were guidelines saying you couldn't combine classes, so that made a challenge for staffing, for the numbers of kids that we had for first thing in the morning and the end of the afternoon. But we have been able to, with the families that we have, we've been able to retain that, and we're as creative as we can get to make sure that all the kids that want to attend can attend. When there was the shutdown, we were able to do some groups on Zoom. Teachers and therapists were both bringing care packages and kits to families, and they did some story times and some songs. Our therapy department, we basically turned around seeing kids in person to telehealth in 3 days. And so by the next Monday, we were seeing all of the families that wanted to be seen by telehealth. We were able to see by telehealth, and we continue to see some of our families by telehealth because we do have, we're still following guidelines to have masks for the adults to be wearing masks as well as the children over 2. And so, for example, for speech therapy, that presents a problem some in person. So we are continuing to do virtual therapy for kids that are working on some of those articulation skills. I will say it's been more challenging with maybe children with a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. And so we have really learned to change our model so that we're doing a lot of parent coaching and really helping and empowering the parents to be the ones to provide strategies that we are putting in place.
Okay,
Did
thank
that
you.
answer your question?
Yep. Thank you, yes.
We have 1 minute.
Okay.
If there are more questions or if there's anything that Amy and Sherry want to make sure we know before we end our time.
I know that in the grant they were talking about, we're talking about social emotional development. And like Amy said, we do pay for all of our staff to go through the Pyramid Plus approach training, which is about 50 plus hours outside of work. We bring that back to the staff at all of our all staff meetings. We have some component of social emotional development that we work on. We do universal screenings, and we use the ages and stages questionnaire and the social emotional component of that. So we're able to talk with families and help support them with any needs that they might have. You asked about the Caregiver Toolkit nights, which we continue to do. We also provide trainings to other agencies. So for example, I did one for Wild Plum. I did 2 different trainings for them this year on how does your engine run and self-regulation, which are part of that whole social emotional big picture. So I feel like we work very cooperatively with other agencies. I feel like we should spread the knowledge. If we know something and we know something that works, that we should be sharing that with all. And so that we really try to do that as best as we can.
All right, that sounds great. The timer went off. Our 15 minutes has completed. So
thank you both
Caitlin,
for
I
your
think we're
time
ready.
tonight.
Thanks. Thank you. Take care.
Have a nice evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, so we have Lorena. So should we go ahead and admit her, and then we can determine what we want to do when it comes to deliberation time?
Sure.
What do you think? We can make these big decisions here.
Well, I mean, at least she came. I don't know.
Yeah, we should let them do it. I mean, we're running easy.
So we'll let her in, and then we'll just decide how we want to consider their participation when we do the deliberations. Does that make sense? All right. All right, Lorena, we let you back in.
Hello?
Hello?
Okay, I'm unmuted.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and go ahead and ask you questions about your application, and then we will determine how to consider that you missed your slot, but you still came in
Absolutely.
on. We'll do that during the deliberation. So
Sure, I appreciate that. Thank you.
So we have 15 minutes, and Caitlin Abbott is our chair, and so she will facilitate the Q&A this evening. And I have the timer, which I am going to start right now.
Hi, welcome, Alina. As we get started, could you just do a quick introduction with your name and your role in the organization?
Sure. My name is Lorena Garcia, and I'm the Executive Director of the Colorado Statewide Parent Coalition.
Great. Sorry, I called you the wrong name, and I apologize. So as we get started, are there any questions from the board or staff for Lorena?
I'm looking for my questions.
Okay.
Sorry.
I can ask a question if it's okay.
There you go.
Go ahead, Karen.
Are all your classes online, and is it just because of COVID that it is, or how does that work? Do you have an office or?
Yeah, so actually all of our classes are held online right now because of the pandemic. We are hoping that in the fall, we'll be able to start offering a couple classes in person. Our offices have shifted to become 100% virtual because during the 2020 session in March, when we went virtual and we remained virtual the entire year, we, number one, had to eat up, what was that, like 8 months of a lease that we had to still pay for, and recognize that we were just as effective and efficient in virtual offices. So the board decided to shift to virtual offices in October of 2020. And so that's what we're doing now.
This is Caitlin again. I'm curious if you could tell us, so I know that I think last year when we chatted with you, Longmont was sort of an area of expansion. Can you tell us a little bit about how things, how many folks you served last year in Longmont and how that went with the virtual option?
Well, Longmont is actually, like, Boulder County and Longmont has always been a priority of CSPC. We were founded in Longmont 40 years ago and actually one of our first PASO institutes were in Longmont.
Oh, okay.
And so that's okay. So it's really just our commitment to maintaining our footprint in Longmont and in Boulder County. Last year, or this year, as we're working and doing PASO in Boulder County, we've been able to serve 17 PASO providers with the funding that we received last year. And we are expecting every single one of them to apply for the CBA.
Got it. Eliberto, I think I saw your hand raised.
Yeah, you kind of asked my question. It's been happening a lot tonight. My questions keep getting asked before I get the chance. So
jump in there.
I know, right? So let me ask this, Lorena. So you got 17 folks going for their CBA. In your experience, how many childcare opportunities does that create, right? Typically, how many kids can get served by 17 trained, PASO trained providers?
So that depends. So because Colorado state law limits PASO providers to serving 4 children, 5 and under. If they're serving children 2 and under, then they can only serve 2 children at a time. So we expect that with the 17 providers, that they're able to serve 68 maximum children at a time, 3 to 4. But if they serve infants, which the majority of them do serve infants, which has been the greatest gap in our childcare sector in Colorado, they will serve less. But even so, that number of providers, that number of slots that gets created with highly skilled FSN providers is, you know, it's invaluable to the families who are able to take advantage of it.
And so just a follow-up question on that, and you may not know the answer to this, and that's fine, but you know, do you have any idea of what traditional child care centers, and in particular infants, are pretty darn expensive. Do you know how much this ballpark saves families in Longmont?
Oh my gosh, it can save families between $1,000 to $1,500 a month. The thing with FFN providers is that the people who are FFN providers are people who are known to the family. They're family. They could be the aunts, the uncles, the sisters, the brothers, the grandparents. They could be the next door neighbor. They could be like the parent's best friend. And because of that, they're doing it because they want to support the family. They love this child. They love this tiny little infant. And so they're doing it out of the goodness of their heart. And they take PASO because they want to be good at it. And they want to make sure that they're providing these young kiddos a really solid moment of growth and period of growth when they're in their most formative years. And so being able to do so, most of these FFN providers, they're not going to charge the going rate of a center. They're going to say, yeah, give me what you can. The vast majority say, give me what you can. Then there's so many providers in Longmont that even say, I'm not going to charge you. There's others that might say, you know what, I do have a values worth because I'm going to also take care of kids that I'm not that close to. So I'm going to put a rate at $40 a day, for example. You know, and so the cost savings for FFN providers is huge. Now we could go down a rabbit hole of whether or not that's fair or not, because FFN providers should also be considered part of the EC workforce. But the reality is that this is a service that these providers, these friends, these families, these neighbors provide to the family that they can take advantage of because they can actually afford it. And if they're able to take advantage of a PASO provider, then they can also feel confident that their youngest, tiniest little tiny kiddo is able to get the skills and the brain development and the movement and the motor skills necessary to be able to, when they enter kindergarten, be at the same level as their white peers.
Do you track, I know that from what you just said and also from your application, you know, the primary purpose here is really that early childhood sort of education and safety and making sure that they're providing the services to meet those milestones. But I think there's also, part of the application mentioned, average income for the providers that are doing this. Do you all track outcomes for those providers in terms of like once they have that CDA, whether how that impacts their ability to provide for their families or anything like that?
We actually do, and we're systematizing that. Actually, this last year, we've been really focused on our partnership with Results Lab on how do we actually improve our tracking and institutionalize our tracking of PASO providers. So actually right now we have our community outreach specialists reaching out to all of our PASO providers since the initiation of PASO in 2006, asking them, where are you? Are you still caring for children? If you are, how many? Are you licensed? Are you still FFN? Has this impacted your income? So we're asking all of these questions. One thing that I will say is that what we have seen recently is that a lot of the providers that go through PASO, I would say probably about 30% of the providers that go through PASO, they get their CDAs, they actually end up working in a licensed childcare facility. So while we're aiming at ensuring that FSN providers are highly skilled and able to provide high quality early care, we are also recognizing that PASO also serves as a workforce development for the early childhood sector.
Got it. Thank you. Karen Phillips.
Yeah, I was just wondering, do you help them get their license to do daycare?
We haven't, no, we actually don't. But because CSPC led the effort to pass Senate Bill 199, which allows providers to apply for license even if they cannot prove lawful presence, we are actually going to start developing trainings and supporting them to go down the licensure pathway.
That's great. Thank you.
So,
Karen Roney, go ahead.
So can you talk a little bit about, you have in your budget, merger support consultation. So can you talk a little bit about what you're up to?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you might have heard earlier, El Paso is going to be going through a transition in the next, 10 months. And that transition is going to be CSP absorbing El Paso as a program of CSPC. And so that merger support is more of a transitional support to be able to ensure that we are connecting the two organizations effectively right now. I mean, both organizations work in Boulder County and in Longmont, making sure that, we already have some overlap within the people that we serve. El Paso utilizes the providers that CSPC trains. And so making sure that we can create this transition and facilitate this transition effectively to ensure that both the individuals that CSPC serves and the clients that El Paso serve, as well as the staff and the boards, are that we're doing this transition effectively and with all of these different perspectives and opinions and cultural backgrounds in mind. And so that's where that comes from.
That's really helpful. Thanks for asking that question, Karen.
So, and you might have, I think you might have mentioned this, but what percentage of PASO participants do move forward and receive their CDA certificates compared to like what you project?
That's a great question. I did not mention it. So we see about 75% of the PASO graduates actually getting their CDA. And the majority of those who do end up getting their CDAs are generally providers that are not grandparents, if you will. So they're the providers that are either the friends or the neighbors. They're not necessarily the family members. And that's because as friends and neighbors, they have more of an interest in an early childhood career that we have been helping to build up and to support them. And so one of the things that we have been looking at, and we've been talking with the Council for Professional Recognition, which does the CDA, they're looking at creating a specific training for FSN providers. And we've been communicating with them because the training that we're using that aligns with the CDA is for family child care homes. And we're trying to share with them and show them through the evidence of our pre and post tests, through our evaluations, that there really isn't actually a need to create a new one, because we don't really want a difference of care and of quality between family child care homes and the FFN providers, even if they are grandparents and even if they are the aunties and uncles and the sisters and the neighbors and the friends. And so I think I just went down a total different track than what you asked. But there's that.
All right. Thank you.
I'm curious whether you have data on So I think you mentioned that you have 17 providers and you think that all or most of them are gonna reapply it to get their CDA. I'm curious what sort of your pipeline looks like. Do you have folks that are on a waiting list to get in your training? Do you turn folks away from it? What does that look like for you right now?
Yeah, the demand for PASO has just been skyrocketing, and we have to turn away providers. We've been having to turn away providers more since the pandemic has started than since pre-pandemic. And it's actually quite difficult. I mean, I'm asked by my staff every single session, can I just add one more? Can I just add one more? And because we are committed to quality and being, committed to the way that we actually do provide PASO so that it is to fidelity of the evaluation that we have, we limit it to 20 providers because it shows that provides the greatest outcomes. And so every time we think, okay, next year we're going to bring down the number of people on the wait list, but it doesn't happen. We just continue to have more people on the wait list.
Do you have any specific plans in light of, with COVID and having to move to the online model? Do you have plans around hiring staff or expanding your ability to offer more training, knowing that each, sort of class is limited to 20 folks?
We definitely have plans, and it all really comes down to if we can generate the funding to be able to hire that staff. And so we are, that is a huge, big component of all of our grant proposals with our institutional funders, of making sure, like you guys have been, for example, like the Buell Foundation or the Daniels Fund, or, letting them know, like, you guys have been funding us for this many years, and now we need you to make a greater commitment so we can meet the need that exists, not only for the providers that want the training, but for all of the children that need the support.
Got it. And sorry, one last question for me is, do you have a rough sense of how large your wait list is? You mentioned trying to get it down, and you're not really making progress on that. How many providers would you say are on that wait list?
We have 45 providers on the wait list right now.
Okay.
So our time has come and gone.
So, all right.
So our 15 minutes are up. So
Thank you.
Thank you so much
Well, thank you so much.
All right.
I
Have a good
appreciate
night.
the second chance. You too.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.